I never believed in legends. I always considered them primitive tales that people create to embellish their daily lives or scare children. But ever since I arrived in this small village, my opinion started to change. What brought me here was the desire to escape the constant hustle and bustle of city life. I was exhausted from the endless tasks, the pressure, and the stress. My friend, Michael, once jokingly suggested I visit the small rural village where he spent his childhood. He spoke about the quiet and calm, the nature surrounding the place, and the forest that looked like something out of a fairy tale. But the most captivating of all his stories was about the lake. He never called it by name, only referring to it as the old lake, or simply the place you shouldn't go. I became intrigued by why the locals were so afraid of this lake. Every time I tried to ask about it, people would avoid the subject or change the conversation. Only one man, an old local named Peter, was willing to share his stories, but even he spoke with a hint of fear in his voice. Peter had lived in the village for over 60 years and had seen much in his lifetime. When I asked him about the lake, he remained silent for a long time, as if weighing whether he should tell me anything at all. Then he began. The lake. It's always been here, even before I was born. But back then, things were different. People used its water, fished in it, swam there. But over time, something changed. First, children started disappearing. A boy went missing, then a girl. They found them dead by the water. Their faces... It was like they saw something so terrifying that their hearts just stopped. Peter continued, and with every word, my curiosity grew stronger. He spoke of a woman the villagers called a Siren, though few had ever seen her. Those who heard her song never returned home. The locals believed she lived at the bottom of the lake, luring victims to her with her voice. There was even a belief that once every few years, she chose someone to be her next victim, and if that person approached the lake after sunset, they would never come back. With each story, I felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. I never believed in such things, but these legends had captured my attention. Instead of pushing me away, they pulled me closer to the lake. One evening changed everything. It was the night I decided I could no longer tolerate this uncertainty. I had to see the lake with my own eyes. My curiosity outweighed common sense. The surrounding calm was almost suffocating. The forest seemed to be asleep, but there was a strange tension in the air. I knew that the locals never went to the lake after sunset, and that became yet another reason for me to go. I had always been a skeptic and didn't fear breaking rules. So, as the sun began to disappear behind the horizon, I grabbed my flashlight, put on my jacket, and headed for the lake, thinking this would be just a walk, something that would end with a sigh of relief. It's all just nonsense. But deep inside, I already had the thought that I might be the next one the lake wouldn't let go. And now, here I am. The lake is silent, but its stillness frightens me more than I could have imagined. My heart races as I peer into its bottomless darkness. Something tells me that this isn't just a legend, that something is waiting for me. I stand at the edge of the forest, facing the forgotten lake. The air is thick and heavy, pressing against my chest. There's no wind at all. The lake, smooth and motionless like a mirror, hides something sinister beneath its surface. The sky above is cloudy, with only a few weak rays of sun breaking through the dense gray veil. I feel the hairs on the back of my neck rise, but I can't tear my eyes away from the quiet water. Fleeting memories flash before my eyes. Old Peter in the local bar, his calloused hands trembling as he clutches his glass. He spoke of those terrible nights when the village lost its children, how their bodies were found in the water, lifeless, without any signs of violence, just cold corpses with glassy eyes frozen in horror. I didn't believe these tales at the time, but now, everything feels all too real. The lake pulls me into its silent mystery. I bend over the water, and a clear reflection appears before me. My gaze locks as I notice how pale I look, like a corpse. My eyes, empty, my skin, sickly white, as if I no longer belonged to the living. Suddenly, a shadow appears behind me. I turn sharply, but there's no one there. My heart pounds, but I try to calm myself, convincing myself that it's just my imagination. The cold hits me unexpectedly, despite the warmth of the summer evening. Darkness falls quickly, faster than I expected. The sun, which just moments ago hovered on the horizon, has now hidden behind the thick trees. The air feels heavy and full of tension. Every breath feels more labored, and my heart begins to beat faster. The lake looks too calm, and this calm unsettles me, as if it knows something I don't. A faint melodic sound begins to echo from the depths of the water. A song. It's so soft and enticing that it feels like it's a part of the lake itself. I freeze, listening to this strange sound. At first, it seems harmonious, but the more I listen, the more it reminds me of crying. Deep and mournful, like the cries of souls trapped between the world of the living and the dead. I gather the courage to move closer to the water, and suddenly, I see something within its depths. At first, it looks like a mere shadow, but then I notice the shape. A woman. Her long black hair flows through the water like strands of seaweed. Her movements are fluid, almost unreal, like a ghost. I watch as she rises closer to the surface, and my skin crawls with goosebumps. Her eyes meet mine, and for a moment, it seems as though she sees me. Everything around me falls silent. The birds no longer sing, the leaves don't rustle. Only the quiet ripple of water can be heard. The air feels thick and heavy. I'm filled with a sense of isolation, as if I've suddenly found myself completely alone in this forest. The world seems distant and unnatural. The lake pulses at the edge of my vision, like a living thing, breathing in the darkness. I glance back at the forest, and with horror, I realize that the path I took to get here is gone. The forest seems much further away than it was. I try to remember the way back, but the fog and the darkness blur all my memories. It's as if nature itself has conspired against me. Panic begins to rise, and I realize that I need to find a way out, fast. The wind picks up suddenly, and with it comes a whisper. The words are barely discernible, but they sound close, right beside my ear. They say my name. The whisper repeats over and over, and each time I hear it more clearly. It pulls me back toward the lake. Fear grips me, but my legs buckle, and I can no longer control myself. I try to pull away from this dreadful place and take a few steps toward the forest, but with each step, I feel cold. Invisible fingers touching my shoulders and arms, holding me back. It's as if unseen spirits want to keep me here, by the shore. Every movement becomes heavy, and I can't run anymore. Suddenly a voice calls out from the lake, crystal clear and at the same time eerie. It says my name, and I no longer have any doubts. It's the Siren. Her voice is loud but muffled, as though it's coming from underwater. She knows me. Her voice is not just a sound. It invades my thoughts, filling my mind. From this voice, I feel cold rage and unrelenting sorrow. Something grabs my leg. I jerk downwards and see a thin hand reaching out from the water, covered in slimy algae. Its cold touch pierces me to the bone. I try to break free, but with every movement, the hand pulls me closer to the lake. I fall to the ground, my hands trembling as I desperately cling to the wet grass by the shore. The water near the shore begins to swirl as if it's alive, but there's no sound, only silence. Feeling myself being pulled closer to the water, I hear her voice again. She begins to speak not only to me, but about me. She knows my deepest desires, my fears, and my dreams. She speaks of things I've longed for: money, power, eternal love. Her words are so tempting that I start to believe her, even though I know it's a trap. I look into the water and see my reflection, but it's distorted. My eyes, like those I've seen in the dead, are pale, like glass. My skin looks as if all the blood has been drained from it. I no longer resemble myself. Fear grips me, but I can feel a part of me beginning to give in to this pressure. Before me lies a choice: either stay and submit to this invisible force or try to escape. My whole body feels paralyzed, and every movement takes immense effort. Her voice grows louder, her words sweeter. She tells me that if I take a step into the water, I will find peace. My legs tremble, but I feel them beginning to move on their own toward the lake. I try to fight, but my body no longer listens to me. A voice inside my head screams that this is dangerous, but I can't resist any longer. I take a step toward the water, and my mind starts to cloud over. And there she is. The siren rises from the water. Her long black hair floats around her like snakes, and her eyes, empty, without pupils. They remind me of a dead sea, swallowing everything around them. Her face is emotionless, but it radiates a power I can't fight. She grabs my hand, her touch as cold as ice. With that touch, my body begins to freeze, as if the blood in my veins is turning to ice. I can no longer move. Her strength overwhelms me, and I feel her pulling me deeper into the lake. My body can't resist, but deep inside, the desire to live still burns. I fall into the cold water, which instantly engulfs me. The water around me feels alive. It wraps around my body, embracing me with cold waves. Her hands still hold me, pulling me deeper and deeper. My vision fades, and all the sounds around me go silent. I feel life slowly leaving me, and the fear turns into complete emptiness. Everything falls silent. The lake is calm again, as if nothing ever happened. The surface of the water is flawlessly smooth. Silence envelops everything around, as if I never existed. The lake keeps its secret, swallowing those who dare to succumb to its song. A few days later, my friend Michael appears by the lake's shore. He's searching for me. But instead of finding me, he sees only footprints, wet tracks leading into the water, with no other trace of my existence. Michael stands at the edge of the lake, surrounded by a thick fog that seems to breathe along with the lake. The air is heavy, and each breath takes effort. He looks out over the smooth surface of the water, but sees no sign of me, no reflection. Only the feeling of something ancient and incomprehensible fills the space. He hears a whisper in the wind, the same melodic song that called me to the water. Fear begins to creep into his mind, but he still doesn't realize what's waiting for him. Michael starts to feel a strange shift in his mind. At first, it's just confusion, but with each passing moment, it deepens. He can't remember why he came here, what my name is, or even if he knows me at all. The whisper becomes louder, filling all his thoughts, as if the lake itself is playing with his mind, forcing him to forget everything he once knew. He steps closer to the water, dipping his hands into the cold surface as if searching for an answer. But instead, he finds only more questions and an overwhelming sense of loss. Suddenly, figures begin to rise from the water. At first, they're just shadows, but soon they take human form. These are the ones the lake claimed earlier. Women, children, men, all standing in the water, staring at him with empty eyes. Their faces show both sorrow and anger, but there's no life in their movements. They are merely ghosts, now belonging to this cursed place. One of the ghosts steps closer to the shore, reaching out a hand as if inviting him to join them. Michael stumbles and falls to his knees by the water. He sees his reflection in the lake. His eyes are now empty, just like those the lake has already taken. He no longer recognizes himself. His heart races, and only one word echoes in his head: run. But his body doesn't respond, and he feels something invisible guiding him slowly toward the water. His legs move on their own. He can no longer control himself. Once again, the siren's song echoes, but this time it's not as soft and alluring as before. It's louder now, and there's a sinister power in it, tearing apart his consciousness. He collapses, feeling the water touch his feet. The whisper in his head becomes unbearable. The siren has risen from the depths of the lake, pulling him toward her. There's nothing human in her eyes, only the boundless cold and the power to consume anyone. The water touches his body, and he feels the cold begin to penetrate his bones. The siren touches his face, and for a moment it seems to him that she's just a phantom. Her touch is icy, her skin translucent like the water. She leans closer, her face almost touching his when he suddenly starts to scream in terror. He tries to break free, but feels his consciousness slipping away with every new touch of the phantom hands. The siren drags him deeper into the water, and around him appear all those who once disappeared by the lake. He sees their faces, and some of them he even recognizes from old photographs he had seen in local newspapers. They all look the same: empty eyes, pale skin, bodies that no longer possess a soul. They all belong to the lake now, and soon he will become a part of this world. His body is already halfway in the water, and he no longer feels anything but the cold darkness. His last breath lingers on the surface of the lake as his consciousness sinks into the abyss. The lake consumes him, just as it has consumed the others, and along with him, it swallows all his memories, dreams, and life. The water becomes still once more. The lake looks peaceful again, and at first glance, it doesn't raise any suspicion. But anyone who comes close to its shore feels an indescribable fear. Now he too has become a part of this ancient secret. Now he's just another shadow in the water, another body lying at the bottom, forever lost in the abyss of the forgotten lake.